phones on silent. Not that any.
What is good, people? I am Jace. Down there, we've got Kenny, and to that side, we've got Joe, and we are Dadcast.
With the
With the
man,
man, them.
How are you
we're,
boys
we're, we're
doing?
we're good. We're out of sync with our with the man them though. I think we need to,
Yeah, we need to do something about that,
I think
innit?
I think part of it might be an issue though with the internet. We'll blame it on lag,
blame
having
it
to
on the
do it
lad.
from lockdown under COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah, man. Yes, but yes. In answer to your question, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm okay. What about you, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Feeling a little bit under the weather though, but it's all good. I got to be here for the boys. Got to be here for the show and for our, valued listeners and watchers. So
Yeah.
Jace?
Yeah, do you know what? It's all been alright, you know. It's not been too bad. Nicola's got another family that she's working with now, just because parents having to go back to work, and we'll touch in a bit on that. But I think, yeah, generally it's been alright. After we finish recording, I'm going to go do day 8 of the Insanity workout program, so that's going to be an interesting one.
That's
good
not
for you.
that's not easy, B.
But yeah, so we're going to go from there, really. But yeah, my question I wanted to pitch, and I will pitch it to Kenny first because Joe's already expressed he's got quite a lot of opinions on it. And the question that I've got is, we're looking at the whole R and how things go before things are being committed to. But the initial date that was planned is the 1st of June, is for schools to return and for kids to start going back. And different schools are trying to figure out different ways, and different countries are saying different things. But my question that I want to ask you is, do you think the 1st of June is too soon, and why?
Yeah, I definitely think it's too soon. And the reason why I think it's too soon. See, this is we're live people. We just getting that
Sorry.
itch, just running up in. Hey, it's the
Go
show,
then.
isn't it? But yeah. As I was saying, it's yeah, I think it's way too soon. The reason why I think it's too soon is because when you think about it, okay, we're talking about children going back into school and we're practicing social distancing measures. That's one of the key things that they're telling us. Okay, stay alert, whatever that means, and also social distance. How they can bring the kids to school and have some kind of a regime or some kind of a procedure where they're meant to social distance. Look at the kids that they're saying to go back. Okay, reception year 1 and year 6. Year 6, okay. Reception year 1. There's no way these children are going to social distance. They shouldn't have to social distance. You know what I'm saying? Because they're children, and at the end of the day, they're there to have, to learn, and they're there to also see their friends, have fun, and stuff like that. And we shouldn't put those kind of measures in place for them in and around school. You know what I mean? It's just unrealistic. Us as parents, yes, with our children, we are practicing social distancing with them, but that's us. That's our responsibility, and I feel that I'm more comfortable with myself, making sure my kids are being are social distancing and and are staying safe. It's just a situation where they can put more people in danger, and I think it's a situation where we could potentially start a second spike. I think the death toll is still way too high for us to even be thinking about those kind of things. And we just have to be realistic. But this is children we're talking about who are vulnerable, and we're just making them even more vulnerable.
I agree with what you're saying. So, if in effect you're saying that we shouldn't pick those years because it's going to be almost impossible to ask them to social distance and almost unfair, I think that what you said though, year sixes are likely to be, they're going to be saying bye to friends of 5 years who they might never see again. So even asking them to socially distance is going to be hard. Now, I think in whatever situation people are put in, whatever the government decides, we need to have social distancing there. So it is about what is right and wrong, like you're saying, Kinney. And I don't think you're going to be able to keep like reception and year 1 and year 6 is socially distancing. I don't think it's like the way I see it, in my opinion, until Parliament is full of MPs and politicians and they're all sat around doing their job, our kids shouldn't be going back to school. And also, you've got newspapers talking about how they've even mentioned about talking about teachers being lazy and stuff and demonizing teachers for not wanting to
Yeah,
go back.
crazy.
And You've got Eton and those all the private schools are not going back until September, all of them, and not one of them has been mentioned in the mainstream media as being lazy teachers or this or that. It's ridiculous. I'm not. My kids ain't going back. I tell you that right now. My kids ain't going to be going back to school until it's safe to do so. Like until I see them politicians sat around them benches. Why am I putting my kids in that? Nah.
That's the thing, and there's a conversation to be had around the. So one of the things that we've discussed is the emotional well-being and the issues that it causes. There kind of being like an invisible wall. So my kids will be very aware that they're not allowed to go near their friends, or they're not allowed to hug their friends and things like that, and that will cause an issue for them in seeing somebody but not being able to fully connect, I guess is a way that I describe it. Because, you know, my girls are very cuddly. And yeah, they're just the fact that they won't be able to really play with their mates or do any dances or anything like that really upsets them the thought of going back to school.
Do you think that's something? Because I agree with what you're saying, Jace. The world we're going into is going to be different to the world that we are in, right? Like we know that nothing's going to quite go back to how it was. Do you think that we're going to have to get to the point where children understand that they can't, like you said, dance, play, cuddle, or do you think, because ultimately we don't have a cure for the virus, right? So even if we decide to ease off certain measures, it's not like there's a cure for corona. The only things that are stopping it from spreading is people being sensible, people socially distancing. So do you think the new normal will be a less tactile kind of society?
Yeah. The thing is I can see it getting that way until a cure is found. But I just think that it's gonna take, like anything, it's taken time for people. Some people are starting to get used to being in their homes now, and it's not as bad as what they thought at the beginning. Kind of the whole staying home. Some people are struggling more than others. But I think that it's a shame that we've got these children that you want your child to be expressive and happy and able to comfort other people and things like that. And it's going to be, yeah, I think, like you say, it's going to be so long before we're able to go back to what we had. But I hope that we will be able to return to how life has been prior to all this kind of virus spreading happening.
Kenny, can I ask you a question on what Jason touched on, and then I'll ask you again, Jason, afterwards. What impact do you think it would have on your children, so on Kida and Zaire, if they were put back into school but were not able to hug their friends, play closely with their friends, if they had to be? You've seen the pictures, I suppose, on the internet of kids with square chalk boxes in the playground and they have to play in that. But how do you think Kida and Zaire would like find that, being the ages they are?
Not good at all. I mean, Kida's in year one, and they play so closely with each other. Play so closely with each other. Again, and Zaire as well. I don't think he will be. I don't think he'll be happy with that kind of restriction. Yeah, it's just how can you know what I mean? It's just you, I can't really um you know think that this is the right thing for our children to kind of go through in this setting when they could just be at home. What I mean? Still continuing to homeschool and be safe until they're able to go and interact with their friends, how they used to. Um, Obviously, life's kind of changed at the moment, hasn't it? So obviously, we're getting them, and preparing them for that the way we are now. But it
Mm.
doesn't mean we have to go into another situation where we're going to have to prepare them for something else again when they could just wait until go back
I got
into
you.
school and just be in the same. Jace?
I think part of it is the when question, because I asked earlier about 1st of June. Is it too soon? I feel it feels that way. I'm no scientist. I'm not a person that's in part of the plans of who goes into school and who doesn't. But there are a lot of places that are saying no, we're not opening until September. But then when it comes to September, that's going to have to be the gradual start, isn't it? Because we can't, like physically, it's stupid, and this is my opinion. It is stupid to just open the doors in September and schools at capacity again. Even the schools that are saying we're not open till September, there's not really been any talk of how they're going to stagger that.
Yeah.
And I think that's another question in there as well, is that, yes, we are not happy to let our children back into school, but as parents, when is the right time to allow them to go back to school then? Like for you,
Well,
is it when there's 10 less, when there's only 10 deaths a day? Like at what point?
Yeah, because ultimately everything you do, you're putting loved ones at risk, and that's what I think is it's such a hard thing. I mean, you look back at I believe the Spanish flu and pandemics like that. You're talking about like a year and a half, 2 years that this was going on for. It was not a short period of time. I think the frustrating thing about our government is that we're obviously like one of the highest death rates in the world. We're the highest death rate in Europe. The government is still, like I said last week, um, telling us that everything's great, telling us that people are looking to us because of the, how we've averted tragedy and crisis and all this rubbish. But it seems to be it's coming down to a financial thing. Furlough is costing the government money. There's only Kinney, what you're saying, I agree with. We shouldn't send out, kids going back into that situation, especially younger kids, are going to find it like it's going to be weird for them. It can be kind of traumatic in a way, not having to isolate within a school environment, within a social environment. But equally, at some point, parents are going to have to go back, and the government seems to be making the decision that profit comes before people, because what they're saying is furlough is costing X amount of money, our economy is going to fail. But when you put it into perspective, and this is what's really frustrating, when they bailed out the bankers, it was like so much more money than what the furlough is costing the country. So it's clear that the money is available when it suits their needs, but it's not available when it doesn't suit their needs, if that makes sense. So I think that's why I don't trust the government on June the 1st. That's why I'm going to be very cautious about when my kids go back. Ultimately, I might get called back into work, and I might not have the option to work from home, and I might have to, the kids might have to go back. Do you know what I mean? So they're all things we're going to have to kind of take on. But I mean, going on to that, and being our own face, without getting too political or whatever, unless you want to get political, have you guys been following?
Sounds like a threat. Do you want to get political?
Listen, do you want to get political, mate? Because I'll get political. You know I will. No, but on the real, what are your thoughts on how this is being handled politically? Are you aware? Is this the kind of stuff you're looking at about the decision the government's making and stuff? Like, do you trust what they're doing? Or
I think for me, it's you hit the nail on the head in that they're dictating that these people should go back to work and these people should do this and these people should do that. But in certain houses of Parliament, they're not actually getting together and they're all working from home and making no plans to return to work. But then at the same time, they'll tell everybody else to. And I think it's that. I feel I want a leader that leads by example. A lot of people made comments about certain people and how they were in intensive care. But then 2 weeks later, they're talking about XYZ as if they didn't almost die from the virus. And it's just a shame that you end up getting these divides. And I think we can only speak for ourselves coming from the inner city. As we seen when the votes came out, the inner cities voted one way, the rest of the country voted another way, and that's why we've got the government we've got. So I think there's already a disconnect, but I don't think there's been much effort to understand where us lot are coming from. There's not been much effort to try and connect with us, and I think that's something that's a massive shame, really. When they talk about childminders, they were talking about childminders that can't work from home. What do you mean childminders that can't work from home? Like, childminders tend to work from their homes as childminders.
I mean, have you seen? Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Have you got into the politics of it, Kenny?
Bits and pieces. I mean, I echo, Jason's sentiments about the fact that they're not seeing. I feel the same. I don't feel like they're seeing all of us. You know what I mean? I feel like just they're going in one direction, and it's kind of focusing on, those people that may have, voted for that government, and us inner city folks who, have more struggles than others. Are suffering, that kind of, like we mentioned last week, goes through kind of a broad range from, like, young carers, Jason say, childminders, disabled people. It's and I think they haven't thought it through properly. They had the time to. They had the time to. We seen what was happening elsewhere, so we had the time to prepare. But it's. I feel like the fact that they've acted slowly on what's happened, has definitely affected the way the virus has gone, and the death toll and stuff. And I'm talking from a guy who has lost a family member to the virus. You know what I'm saying? And that's even, it's made an even bigger impact than I could ever even imagine. So it's this government has got a lot to answer for, as you know, and I know that you know, Fred, and that they've got a lot you know,
The-
to answer.
yeah,
But
and
probably
but I
more
mean,
than I do, to be fair.
it's quite telling what you said, what you were saying, Jace, about even looking at childminders and stuff. But if you look at the list of people able to go back to work, it's all people that benefit upper class living, like the people they're basically creating, in my opinion, they're creating, they're just making laws that kind of suit their needs. They're not in touch with the common person. Not and the maddest thing is, even though certain groups of people in the inner city voted a certain way and people in other parts of the country voted another way, it's like it's so frustrating to see that the wool has just been pulled over everybody's eyes. Have you seen now that they're freezing? They're talking about a 2-year freeze on NHS pay rises. Like they're talking about that mid coronavirus. Like that's just come out in the news. They're saying that they're not going to be increasing any NHS staff for at least 2 years for pay for nurses and things like that. Also, you've had things where people who were getting deported, who worked for the NHS, who were being deported under Brexit, being asked to extend their visa, but that they will still have to be deported at the end of it. Like it's disgusting, I think, and I feel like you have to say what it is. You know what I mean? I think that the fact that the government devalue key workers so highly, and in regards to looking at PPE for NHS stuff, you look at other countries and how well equipped they were, and New Zealand is the example everybody turns to, but that's because she did such a good job and she wasn't willing to do a herd immunity. She wasn't willing to let any death go. If one person caught it, they did a lot of research into where that person had been. They've had such a small amount of deaths. We were still letting people into the country from high risk areas up until less than a week ago.
I think
Mm.
It's,
going back to, like, again, linking it back into schools and with kids and stuff like that, just doing a bit of reading
yeah,
whilst I'm doing it, because I remembered that there was, in other European countries, they don't focus necessarily on the academia in the same way that we do in the UK, and it was Finland. So in Finland, the comprehensive school system has sat at the top of Europe's rankings for the past 16 years, and part of it is saying that they feel that children are not ready for academic education until they are 7. We believe children under 7 are not ready to start school. They need time to play and be physically active. It's time for creativity. Whereas, it is said that in the UK, we tend to be quite competitive in our learning. We want our kids to pick up a pen and be able to recite the alphabet and all those things. And I think that it's because of that side of us why reception and year 1 and year 2 are being mentioned as, right, we need to get these guys in first because of the learning that they're missing. But actually, in places like Finland, if we had that system, would there be as much of a push to get those little ones in? Or are we pushing to get those little ones in just because they're the harder ones to fob off on family members because they're so little, and that way it gets people back into work? Is it that?
that either way, however you look at it, it seems to be that it's still about putting profit before people, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So it's just, to be honest, it's disheartening. It's really disheartening that our government seem to care so little about the majority of the people in the country. You look at like the majority is not middle class and upper class. You know what I mean? Like it's just
And we're 3 men. We're all parents, and if it does become a thing where like you're saying, that we all need our jobs in order to pay our rent. If it is that we have to go back to work, that means that we can't be home with our kids and our kids have to go to school. How do we help them cope with that? Because I imagine you guys have been quite open with your disdain for them going back to school. My kids are very aware of where myself and Nicola stand on the kids going back to school. But if it gets to a point where we have to send them because, work's not going to pay you because you're exercising your right not to send your child to school, which means you can't go to work. They can't pay you for that. So how do we support our kids? And when we go, do you know what, guys, you do have to go in. Like, yes, mum and daddy feel like it's not time, but if you guys don't go in, I don't go to work, we're homeless.
So I'll let you guys answer in full, just because I'm in a bit of a situation where actually, my eldest mum is not working. She works. She's got a little baby, so she's at home. So it's not going to be a concern for a while with Maisie. And in regards to the younger 3 as well, their mum works from home and stuff as well. So actually, for me, I don't have such a say in it. I think for you guys, where both your couples are working, so I'll let you guys kind of lead.
But at the same time, you say that. But at the same time, if it got to a point where Maisie was being told that she had to go to school because of X, Y, Z, like, you'd still have an opinion. How would you help her see what had to be done?
I think that if I ever felt like her health or anybody else's family, anyone else in the family's health was at risk to the point where we could lose a life, I wouldn't send her back, and I'd take whatever fines they sent my way. obviously that's thinking of quite extreme circumstances, and you would need to make sure you had like homeschooling in place, which we don't have the facilities for, even though her mum works from home, like, or is at home. It's not like she's a teacher. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, but I'll never put my child in a situation where, although we are in the situation already that if the kids go back to school at any point, my mum said, well, I can't have my grandkids because she's high risk. She's
Yeah.
71 years old. So, yeah, it's a difficult one, to be honest.
So
What are you saying, Kenny?
yeah, so it's a catch 22. I mean, like, because I need my job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Mm.
need my job. I need the money. But then again, my kids, their health is the utmost importance. But I think going forward, like, as like Jay said, we're telling the kids and stuff about what's happening, and our views and things like that, and why we're feeling like that, and ultimately because we don't want to put them into danger. And I think trying to make them understand the difficulties and the decisions that we have to make, I think it will help them in the long run in terms of understanding the difficult decisions their parents do have to make, which I think is sometimes missing a lot with I suppose some parent children relationships, because they don't really see that side of the hard decisions that we have to make as parents. You're just dad, or you're just mom, and and that's who you are. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going to be letting them know about the reasons why they would have the hard decisions that we would have to make to whether to send them back. I can't I can't afford not to work,
Mm.
because I have to keep obviously a house over their heads. And at the end of the day, like, they're still young, and they still got a lot of learning to do. And I think that the time that they've missed so far, yeah, the school has been great in sending them work and things like that, and we're doing our part. But if they have to go back, I want to make sure that they go back as safe as possible. And I think as parents, especially with the schools, we would have to have some kind of a discussion. I know the school that my kids go to, they will definitely put some kind of facilities in place for parents to have their say on what's happening with the school. And that's
Mm.
all I can really hope for, to be able to give my 2 cents into how this kind of affects us as a family, and the kids and their health.
Unless the council take it, because there's some cities that are saying their schools are not going back on the 1st of June, aren't they? There's a few. Liverpool's already said it. A few other places have said it.
Yeah, our school, but our school has said that they're not realistically, they're not equipped for that
Yeah,
to happen. I mean,
yeah,
it's 2 weeks away,
yeah,
barely.
for real. Mm.
You know,
What about what? So, Jace, with your because it's obviously I always find it interesting looking at the ages of all of our kids, because obviously my elder three, I can have a different kind of conversation with than maybe you guys could have with your younger ones. Do you know what I mean? But in regards to that decision making and stuff, Jace, is that something that your girls are, aware of, and is it something you would talk to them about and stuff
So
if
yeah,
they had to send them back?
yeah. So we haven't kind of, the thing that's interesting is they'll probably listen to this conversation now because obviously I'm just next to their bedroom door, but it's one of those scenarios where they know that we don't make any decisions lightly. And I think when it came to them, if we are in this scenario where, right, the kids have to go back to school because I have to go back to work, again, it's a bit different for us because Nicola's a childminder, she works from home. So, we've got that. But even on the hypotheticals of if the kids had to go to school, I think it would be for me, the school's going to have measures in place, but it's just making sure that you skill up your kids and arm your kids with the knowledge that, like, look, this is still going on. You guys are going to go to school, that's good to see your friends, but make sure, that you're still doing the washing your hands, make sure you're not touching your face, make sure you're not just picking up things that other people picked up. It's just trying to arm them. It's just that we can't be there over their shoulder to do some of that helicopter parenting that some of us might do.
Does that give you any form of anxiety? So when I look at the ages of kids, again, I feel like my older three are old enough to be able to do that. They can take some hand gel with them, they can wear a mask, they can not hug their friends, and they can not pick up things that don't. But when you look at Kida, for example, or even Jada, like, how confident would you feel? And I even think about Malachi, he's going to be playing football, he's going to be in everybody's face. Like, how confident would it give you anxiety when they go back? Are you going to be worried that they might not be, they might subconsciously just forget to, do you know what I mean?
I don't I'm confident in the kids because we're practicing it at the moment. You know, obviously
Right.
with family members, social distancing coming over from afar and stuff like that. So they're practicing it at the moment, and
Mhm.
having that conversation with them and letting them know, look, we're still practicing this, okay? And I have a confidence in the school that my kids go to,
Yeah.
that not the parents, sorry, the teachers in their classes will do their utmost to make sure that the correct procedures have been put in place to support them.
Mm.
I think for me, it's the knowing what Jada's like. It's the stress of trying to make sure she does the right thing, and so there's the right thing internally that you feel, but also there's what you're being told that are the rules that are the right things, and it will be that thing of say they are just running around and doing races up and down, yeah. Somebody falls, skims their knee, they're gonna want to go over and check that person's okay. But then I know someone like Jada's going to be like, wait, I can't go over near that person because we need to be distant. And I think it's going to be that internal conflict that will cause her duress. And I think it's those bits really. I think that, she could keep to the rules. She can listen to what the teacher's saying, all that stuff. But there will come moments where she's like fighting against herself. And when some people get a bit like antsy about something or a bit upset about something, sometimes that can like really like strike a chord with Jada. So there's times where I'll go and I'll speak to her like, I'm really disappointed because you guys done X, Y, Z, and just be like, oh, I'm sorry, and Jess will feel bad, but Jada will feel really, really bad, and it's that element that I worry about for Jada more than anything else. I think Jess, when she sees her friends initially, she does have this thing where she wants to run over and hug them, but again, as we've seen when people have come to our door just to like kind of check in, she knows, oh no, actually I can't go out there. On Sunday, yesterday, we went to socially distancing visit Nicola's grandma, and so the kids were like kind of like sat on the pavement whilst Nick's grandma was in the front garden, and like as much as they wanted to go and give her a hug, they couldn't, but they understood it and that was okay, and that wasn't like a massive thing. So I think they could manage it in school. It's like kind of the mental health bit. We've had somebody comment saying like, I don't think it'll be good for the children's mental health. They're going to have to treat their friends like time bombs. How are they meant to deal with that?
It's a hard one, but then so I'm not disagreeing at all because I agree. But on the flip side of that, at what point do we say it's detrimental for the kids to be at home completely isolated? Say we had the choice of when to send them back to school, and it's not going to be, we might not find a cure for another year and a half, right? At what point do we say it's detrimental to their mental health in that way? It's a lose-lose situation almost. Do you know what I mean? Talking about mental health, because I think that's something everybody everyone I've spoken to has struggled with at some point during this quarantine and stuff. Like obviously you were saying about going to visit your visit gran and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And we've done a similar thing where I've took the kids to see my mum, and again we've been sat on the street and stuff, and that's been so good for her mental health. Have you guys got any other kind of tips or anything else you guys have struggled with, I guess, with in regards to mental health and this isolating situation?
For me, it's not going outside. In that, so I went to work this week and I never had any sort of like massive anxieties or shakes about going outside, but I didn't want to go outside. If I stay in my house, then I'm minimising the risk of any of us getting it.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's going to take a while for this virus to die out. If it does die out, it's going to take a while for us to have the medications needed to manage it and those sorts of things. I shouldn't stay in my house for months and months and months on end. But at the same time, I'm not going on walks. That's because I'll go on walks and other people are on walks. I'm like, we're all entitled to go for this exercise, but you're in my space, I'm in your space. If you're walking along the feeder, the path isn't that wide and it can be busy at certain times of the day. Whether that's with bikes or cars or whatever. So you end up with like, I'm not adhering to the 2 meters because the path is not 2 meters wide. Especially when you're walking with your family and they're walking with their family. It's trying to balance those things. And so for me, it's actually going, do you know what? It's okay. Like, it's okay to feel the way that I feel, as long as I'm not like losing myself. And I think if you can see it, then you're winning, if that makes sense. I think people who are unaware of, oh, I'm worrying about this, why am I worrying about that? It's like, no, I'm worrying about it because A, B, C. And I think those are the bits that make a difference. So my tip is, if you can see where the issues are, you can work on them. If you're unaware of them, then you're kind of stuck. And I don't know what the answer, I know it's a bit rubbish, I don't know what the answer is to that when you can't see it. But I think if you have somebody that you can see is feeling a type of way or is acting a type of way, hopefully you're in a relationship or know somebody who is in a relationship that's close enough to them that can let them know, like, oh, actually, you need to check this bit. Like, are you okay? You need to check that bit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
For me, I've been furloughed for a while, and although that being furloughed has helped me to increase the quality of time that I spend with the kids and their schoolwork, with now I've got, I'm now finding out that I'm going to be furloughed for a further month. Um, it's I've now set into a routine where, we're doing the same thing. We're getting up, doing the homeschooling, taking, show out to work, coming back, and that's the bit where, at first it was cool, and then it's like now you want to try and do, other things, and at the same time, I'm kind of in charge of a lot of stuff. So I do the shopping. So I'm popping out every now and again doing the shopping, or I'm driving people here, or we're going to see, family, and so I'm doing that all the time. So I am out a lot. But
Mm.
then again, it's like I mentioned about that routine. It's the continual routine thing is where you kind of want to step out and do something different. And because of the measures that are being put in place now, it's not as easy to just kind of just go out and and do something different. So what I have been doing is been doing weekly social distancing football with the boys,
Hmm.
which has definitely helped because I know some of them are, in isolated situations as well. So more so than ourselves. So it's been helpful to kind of just chat things over, with the boys, whilst kicking a long ball to each other. That's been comforting. Um, but yeah, it's another thing that I suppose in my head is I don't want to get into such a routine where it's like, okay, I'm not working and you're just used to it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And
Mm. Mm.
I'm staying wary of that because I want to get back into work because I just don't want that feeling of feeling like, oh, I'm not working, I'm not doing anything, you know, and I'm just there, and that's it. So I am quite keen to get back to work, but it doesn't mean that in any way that I'm not enjoying my time, the quality time I'm spending with the kids and their work. Man, I'm
Yeah.
learning how to do fractions again. Like,
See, that's the thing, like, because for me, I'm not furloughed, I am working, and with my kids, it's almost like I'm glad that I'm working because it does keep a routine to my life, and I think that's really good because I am up, I have to be on the computer at 9 o'clock every day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got this routine because my kids sleep in a bit now. Do you know what I mean? But it means I don't get the opportunity to spend as much time with them in the day as I would like to. So when I've got my kids and I'm working, they pretty much entertain themselves. So I'll encourage them to do schoolwork, but they'll be on their screens, they'll be doing what they're doing, they might be doing a bit of art or whatever. Malachi still plays his Lego and that. But I don't get the opportunity to do that. And it's almost like whichever situation you're in, there's positives and negatives to it. Like I would love to be furloughed in a way, but I would also think I'd really struggle in regards to my routine. I think I'd end up going to bed super late. I think I'd end up waking up late. I don't think it would be that healthy to do. I've got a weird like I feel really exposed if I go out without my mask on. Like that's definitely it's not an anxiety, but I would say it's something that I've become aware of. Like I almost feel naked if I step out and I haven't got my mask on my face. Like I don't feel protected. Do you know what I mean? And I know there's a lot of stuff back and forth about whether masks are effective or not, but from what I can see, it's not going to be detrimental to wear a mask. So if everybody wore a mask, there's less like, in my opinion, I'm not a scientist. I just feel comfortable with it. So yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? I was saying to the kids, they're gonna be like when they've got kids, their kids are gonna be in school and they're gonna come home one day talking about, Mom, Dad, were you alive when Corona
Yeah.
happened in 2020? Like, do you know it'll be a thing. It'll be a thing for that. We're living in like history, which is
Now we've spent the last couple of weeks, talking about it because we're living it. So we're talking about COVID-19 because we're all going through it and we're sharing our experiences. I want to make sure that next week we have a bit of a discussion, have something that's a bit lighter in topic. So I'm
yep.
setting you boys some homework over the next week. There's going to be something that happens that is noteworthy. Whether it's a quip, something funny the kids have said or done, or a family member said. But I would like you to bring something that represents something that has happened this week.
Is this show and tell, yeah?
So we're going to do a show and tell. Even if that means you've drawn a picture of a scenario. I know you're a bit more artsy, Joe, so if you want to make a comic strip, feel free to bring a comic strip. But yeah, I want us all to try and bring something next week so we can just, talk about life that's going on. We're all living in COVID-19, we're all living in lockdown. But yeah, there's more going on than us just sort of like sat worrying about the virus. So yeah, let's make sure we talk about that next week.
I think that's wicked. I was thinking the same
yeah.
thing. I was thinking it would be good to have like a no COVID, one every now and again, like no talk of COVID. That's because other
No
stuff,
COVID.
everything's still going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
stuff's still
yeah.
happening. Like
Maybe not
life's
the way
still
we want
happening.
it to, but it
Yeah,
still
but
is.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do want to give a bit of a shameless plug, seeing as we've only got about 2.5
Yeah.
minutes left. Obviously, people might be aware that me and Maisie have been doing Dadcast in review. The latest episode is up on YouTube,
To
so if you
all
go and
the
check out
boys I loved. Is that
to
what it
all
was
the boys
called?
I loved before, yeah,
That's
to
it.
all the boys I loved before. So yeah, so if you guys wanna, if people listening want to check that out, we'd appreciate it. Let us know what you think. It is a work in progress. I'm getting better at editing, but I'm not where I need to be. So any constructive feedback is
You're
more
not where
welcome.
you
But we
want
enjoy
to
it.
be. You got to be careful how you
Yeah,
word that.
yeah.
Because you're not in a bad
And
space. You're just not where you want to be.
yeah,
Oh yeah. No, I'm feeling alright about it. I'm better. The second one was better edited than the first one. You know, so it's a learning curve.
right. What I want you to do now is stop saying that.
Okay.
I want you to
Okay.
stop
Okay.
saying that now.
Okay.
I want
All
you to
right.
stop saying that. Yeah,
Done.
because I think you're being too hard on yourself. So I just need you to stop saying that now.
Okay.
And
It's
Okay.
funny
you
hearing
also
Kenny
say
say that to somebody else. It's funny hearing Kenny not say that to me. But yeah, so make sure you do check it out on YouTube, youtube.com/dadcast with the man dem. If you follow us on all the socials at dadcast WTMD, you can find it. We post it on different places. Yeah, we do hope that everybody is staying well and looking after each other. If you are on your own, never hesitate to give someone a call, because somebody will always pick up the phone. We're all living in our own bubbles, and sometimes we can forget how others are feeling. And I think that we should never have too much pride to not ring someone if you're sat at home just on your ones. Just give somebody a ring. If you want to just sound off, dadcastwtmd@gmail.com. Ping us an email and we will happily email back and have back and forth conversation that way. We are not experts, we are not professionals in that sense, but we're here, we've got a platform, we want to talk to people and support people.
We're professionals in life.
Yes.
Like that.
But yeah.
I was just going to say, if anybody's got any topics they want us to cover, give us a shout, drop a comment, and we'll look at getting your topics covered in the next few weeks.
So yeah, I guess there's nothing else to say, people, but fatherhood
doesn't come with a manual.
Man.
See you guys later.